What if rest isn't a reward for working hard enough, but a basic human need you've been taught to postpone? Stay tuned for an honest conversation about why you don't have to earn rest and how learning to rest without guilt can change everything. Welcome back to the Resilient MD, the podcast and YouTube channel where we have honest conversations about medicine, burnout, resilience, and how to care for others without losing yourselves in the process. I'm your host, Dr. Anna McDowell, certified life coach, allergist, and firm believer that small changes can create massive ripple effects. I'm so glad you're here today because we're exploring an idea that sounds simple on the surface, but has the power to completely change the way you experience your work, your relationships, and your life. Today, we're talking about rest. Not the kind of rest that happens after you push yourself to the brink. Not the kind of rest that you finally allow yourself after everything is done. And certainly not the kind of rest that feels rushed, guilty, or undeserved. We're talking about something many women have never been taught, that rest is not a reward. Rest is a requirement. And perhaps one of the greatest acts of self trust is learning that you don't have to earn it anymore. Many of us grew up with a very specific message about rest. Rest comes after the work. Rest come after the responsibilities. Rest come after everyone else's needs have been met, right? Rest comes after you've proven you've worked hard enough. And for high achieving women, that message often becomes deeply ingrained. Without realizing it, we begin treating rest like a prize at the end of an obstacle course, a reward, something we deserve only after sufficient productivity. And medicine reinforces this beautifully. You push through residency, then fellowship, then the first years of practice, then the staffing shortage, then the schedule crisis, then the next challenge, and the next. The finish line keeps moving on and on. And because the finish line keeps moving, rest keeps getting postponed. In my experience, many women unknowingly enter into a bargain with themselves. The bargain sounds kind of like this: I'll rest when you fill up the blank. I'll rest when clinic slows down. I'll rest when the kids are older. I'll rest when the project is finished. I'll rest when I catch up. I'll rest when things get settled down. The problem is that life rarely settles down permanently. One season ends and another begins. One responsibility is replaced by another. One challenge gives way to the next one. And before you know it, years have passed. You've become incredibly skilled at working, but you've lost touch with resting. One of the most damaging beliefs in modern professional culture is the idea that rest is merely recovery. Even I have been guilty of doing this. I'm sure you have heard me say, you cannot pour from an empty cup, right? We are normalizing the idea that rest exists to prepare you to work harder because it is easier for high achieving women to accept this. Rest becomes another productivity tool. Sleep so you can perform, take a vacation so you can become energized, exercise so you can become more productive. Even self-care gets turned into optimization. Everything becomes about output. But human beings are not machines, and rest has value independent of productivity. Rest is not only about restoring performance. Rest is about restoring humanity. It allows us to reconnect with ourselves, with our relationships, with our creativity, our curiosity, even with our joy. Things that have value, whether they improve productivity or not. One pattern I've observed repeatedly among women physicians is that rest can feel surprisingly uncomfortable at first. Not because they don't need it, but because they've spent years equating movement with worth. When you are accustomed to constant motion, stillness can feel unfamiliar. You sit down to relax and immediately think about emails, unfinished tasks, obligations, future planning. Your body may be resting, but your mind remains on duty. It keeps going. And many women interpret this discomfort as evidence that they are bad at resting. In reality, they're experiencing something entirely normal. Their nervous system has been trained for constant activation. Learning to rest is not weakness, it is a skill. And like any skill, it takes practice. Let's talk about something that often gets overlooked: leadership. Many women believe leadership means caring more, sacrificing more, being available more, giving more. But sustainable leadership requires something different. Because exhausted people do not model resilience, exhausted people model exhaustion. What if leadership looked like setting healthy boundaries, protecting recovery time, respecting personal limits, demonstrating sustainable success? What if the strongest person in the room wasn't the one sacrificing the most? What if it was the one creating a life they could actually sustain? Can you think about that? Throughout this podcast, we've talked about overfunctioning, being the reliable one, the capable one, the person who always handles everything. And while those qualities are admirable, they come with a cost. Overfunctioning often teaches us that our value comes from what we produce, from what we solve, from what we carry, from what we accomplish, right? But eventually, that relationship becomes unsustainable. Because if your worth is tied to your productivity, rest will always feel threatening. Every moment of stillness feels like lost value, and that is a heavy burden to carry. Before we move on, I want to pause for a moment. I'm curious, have you been feeling exhausted, discouraged, or frustrated and not quite sure why? Are you quietly wondering if this is just how life in medicine has to be? Well, I see you. You don't have to give up on yourself or your dreams. And the good news is that you don't have to figure it all out alone. I built a 6-week one-on-one coaching program designed to help women physicians gently remove the barriers keeping them stuck and rediscover clarity, balance, and purpose. It is called the Resilient MD, just like the podcast and YouTube channel. If you're ready, you can begin today. Schedule your free clarity call. The link is in the show's notes. Research continues to show that periods of rest are essential for creativity, problem solving, emotional regulation, and decision making. When we step away from constant doing, the brain activates what neuroscientists call the default mode network. This network helps us integrate experiences, process emotions, make connections, generate insights, develop creative solutions. Interestingly, some of our best ideas emerge not when we are actively working, but when we are walking, resting, daydreaming, or simply allowing our minds space to wander. This is not laziness, it's biology. The brain needs periods of spaciousness to function optimally. So, in other words, rest isn't the absence of growth. It's often where growth happens. What if you didn't wait until you were depleted? What if you didn't wait until burnout, illnesses, resentment, emotional exhaustion forced you to stop? What if rest became proactive instead of reactive? That's a new concept there, isn't it? What if rest became part of your life rather than a rescue plan? Many women have spent years treating rest like emergency medicine, something to be administered after damage occurs. But what if rest becomes preventative care for your mind, your body, your relationships, your future? As we continue this quarter on permission, perhaps the deeper invitation isn't simply permission to rest. Perhaps it is permission to trust yourself enough to rest, to believe that your value does not disappear when you are not producing, to believe that slowing down does not make you less ambitious, to believe that taking care of yourself is not selfish, and to believe that you do not have to prove your worth through constant exhaustion, because your worth was never dependent on your output in the first place. If today's episode resonates with you, I want you to consider one simple question. What would change if you stop treating rest as something you have to earn? Not next month, not after the next project, not after the next crisis. Today. Because perhaps the permission slip you've been waiting for looks like this. You are allowed to rest before you are exhausted. You are allowed to pause before you break. You are allowed to care for yourself before you are depleted. And you are allowed to build a life where rest is not recovery from overfunctioning, but a part of how you lead, live, and thrive. Remember, my wings grow when I listen. If this message stayed with you, share it with someone in medicine or not who might need it. Next week, we'll discuss the reasons why women are constantly feeling pressure to justify their place. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode of the show. And one more thing before you go. If you're realizing that you've spent years taking care of everyone else while slowly disconnecting from yourself, I created a free reflection guide just for you. It's called People Pleasing in Medicine, and you can download it at the link below. Did this episode resonate with you? If so, it would mean the world if you leave a quick 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite platform and give it a thumbs up on YouTube. It only takes a second and helps more amazing people like you find the show. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your honesty. And thank you for giving yourself permission to believe that rest is not something you earn. It's something you deserve simply because you're a human. I'm Dr. Anna McDowell, a resilient MD just like you. I'll see you next week.